When Isabella came home that night, I knew something was wrong. Her face was pale, her eyes heavy, and her smile, the one that used to light up the entire room, looked forced, almost rehearsed. "Long day?" I asked, putting down my glass. She nodded, setting her purse on the counter. "You could say that. Ben had an interesting proposal for me today." The name made my stomach tighten. Ben Miller, her boss. A man whose handshake lingered too long and whose compliments always carried shadow. I met him twice. The kind of man who smiled with his mouth, but not his eyes. I tried to sound casual. "Proposal?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "A career proposal. He wanted me to be part of his new project team. Said it could mean a promotion, more pay, more visibility." "Sounds good," I said slowly. "But you don't look thrilled." She sighed, pouring herself a glass of wine. "It's complicated. There's another side to it." Something cold slid down my spine. "Another side?" She looked up at me, uncertain, as if debating whether to speak. Then she smiled, that same forced smile. "Forget it. You'll see soon enough. It's supposed to be a surprise." That night, while she showered, I sat in the kitchen replaying her words. "You'll see soon enough." It didn't sound like a good surprise. The next morning, she was distant. Coffee untouched, eyes darting around the room like she was waiting for an argument that never came. When she left for work, she kissed me on the cheek, soft, brief, mechanical. Something had changed. I just didn't know what. 3 days later, she came home late again. Her perfume was stronger than usual, her hair slightly disheveled, her blouse unbuttoned one too many buttons. "Traffic?" I asked, forcing calm. "Meeting," she replied too quickly. Ben had some ideas he wanted to run by me. About leadership, power dynamics, all that psychological stuff. I raised an eyebrow. "Power dynamics?" She smiled nervously. "He's an intense person. But honestly, I find it fascinating. He says understanding dominance and control can improve relationships, even outside work." There it was. The word control hung in the air like smoke. I leaned back. "And you agree with it?" She hesitated. "I'm not sure. Maybe. I mean, sometimes women want to feel powerful too, right? In their jobs, in their lives, even in their marriages." Her eyes flicked up to meet mine. Searching, challenging. I didn't answer right away. "I believe in equality," I said finally. "Not dominance. Not control. Marriage isn't a game of power. It's a partnership." She smirked slightly. "You sound like you're giving a TED Talk, Peter." I frowned. "And you sound like you've been listening to him too much." That night, she came to bed late. When she thought I was asleep, I heard her whispering softly to herself, a kind of rehearsal like she was testing lines in her head. "Strong women attract strong men. Alpha energy, submission is respect." I turned away, my heart pounding. What was happening to her? A week later, the truth began to show. We were having dinner when she suddenly looked at me and said, almost casually, "Have you ever thought about experimenting in the bedroom?" I looked up from my plate. "Experimenting how?" "With roles. Power roles. Maybe dominance. It could make things more exciting." I set down my fork. "Isabella, where's this coming from?" She shrugged. "Ben mentioned it. He says couples who explore their primal sides have stronger bonds." I felt something snap inside me. "You're talking about your boss giving you marriage advice?" "He's not just my boss," she said quickly. "He's insightful. He understands psychology." I laughed bitterly. "He understands manipulation. That's what he understands." She looked hurt. "You're overreacting. He's been helping me understand myself." "Is der Herr stunned?" By telling you to play submissive games? By suggesting that control equals passion? Her lips trembled, but she didn't look away. "You're just afraid of losing control, Peter." That line, that rehearsed, poison line, something deep inside me froze. That night, I barely slept. Her perfume lingered on my pillow, and all I could think about was Ben's smug face, the way he probably looked at her, the way he probably imagined himself as some kind of alpha male dominating the world. No, not my wife. The next morning, she dressed slower than usual, her eyes distant. "Ben wants to talk to you," actually, she said. "About what?" "About understanding boundaries. He said it would help if you heard his perspective." I stared at her. "You told him about us?" She hesitated. "Not everything. Just that we've been distant lately." That was the moment I realized it wasn't just about temptation or flirting. Ben wanted control, not just over her, but over me. He wanted to prove he could break a marriage just because he could. And that's when I decided something. If Ben Miller wanted to play games about dominance, I'd show him what fear really looked like. It happened on a Thursday night. I knew where he parked, the lot behind the office, near the alley with no cameras. I waited by his car, hood up, hands shaking but steady enough to hold the small steel pipe I'd brought. When he appeared, striding out of the building in his tailored suit, talking loudly on the phone, I stepped out from the shadows. "Evening, Ben." He froze, eyes flicking up. "Peter? What the hell?" The first hit landed on his ribs before he finished the sentence. He doubled over, gasping, and the phone clattered to the ground. "Jesus Christ. Are you insane?" "Not insane," I said, my voice calm. "Just done watching you try to destroy my marriage." He tried to grab me, but I slammed him against the car. He was stronger, but I had rage, the kind that made pain irrelevant. When he reached for my throat, I twisted, slammed his arm, and pressed the cold edge of a knife against his jaw. He froze, trembling. "You're making a mistake, man." "No," I said quietly. "You did. You thought you ran that office. You thought you ran her. But you don't run a damn thing now." I leaned closer, my voice cold. "If you ever text her again, look at her, or even breathe her name in that building, I'll come back. And next time, you won't walk away." His face went pale. "You'll go to prison for this." "Not if you stay quiet," I said, stepping back. "And you will." Then I walked away, leaving him shaking on the pavement. When I got home, the house was silent. Upstairs, I heard the faint sound of water running. Isabella in the shower. She came out wrapped in a towel, surprised to see me awake. "You're home early." "Yeah," I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "How was work?" She hesitated, then said carefully, "Ben seemed different today. Quiet, like something scared him." I met her gaze. Maybe he finally realized where his limits are. She tilted her head, studying me. "Peter, what did you do?" "Nothing," I said softly. "But if he's smart, he'll keep it that way." She smiled faintly, like she almost believed me, or maybe she didn't want to. Then she crossed the room, knelt beside me, and whispered, "I don't know what changed, but I love you like this. Strong, fearless." I didn't answer. I just stared into her eyes, wondering when love had turned into war. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Ben didn't call, didn't text, didn't even show up at work for 2 days. Isabella mentioned he had personal matters to deal with. I told her to take some time off too, but she refused. "I'm fine, Peter. It's just work. Don't make it bigger than it is." But I could see it in her, the unease, the flicker in her eyes every time her phone buzzed, the way she checked her messages in secret. She was afraid. Not of me, of something else. On Friday evening, she came home early for once. She wore a silk robe and nothing underneath. Her perfume filled the air before she even stepped into the room. "Trying to make peace?" I asked. She smirked. "Something like that." She walked up, hands sliding down my chest. "I want to forget everything that happened this week," she whispered. "No work, no Ben, no fights." Her lips brushed mine, soft and deliberate, but I could feel it, that undercurrent of guilt and confusion. The way people kiss when they're trying to silence their conscience. We made love that night, slow and heavy, but my mind was elsewhere. On that alley, on the look in Ben's eyes when he realized he wasn't the predator anymore. Afterward, she lay on my chest and whispered, "You scare me sometimes, Peter." "Why?" "Because when you look at me, it's like you already know everything." Maybe she was right. Maybe I did. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing. She was in the shower. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. A single message on the lock screen. "Ben, we need to talk. You don't know the full story." My blood ran cold. I sat there staring at it for what felt like hours. When she came out, I was calm. Too calm. "Ben texted you," I said simply. Her face went white. "Peter." I raised a hand. "Don't. Just tell me why." She hesitated, then sighed. "He said he wanted to apologize." I didn't answer. "Do you believe him?" She didn't respond. That silence told me everything. That evening, I made a decision. If she wouldn't end it, I would. I packed her suitcase, every shirt, every sweater, every pair of jeans. Her makeup from the bathroom went next, dumped unceremoniously into a trash bag. When she came downstairs, towel wrapped around her hair, she froze at the sight. "Peter, what are you doing?" "I'm setting you free," I said coldly. "You wanted control. You wanted power games. Go play them with him." Her lip trembled. "This isn't what you think." "Then what is it, Isabella? You wanted to see how far you could push me? You wanted to make me your experiment?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," I said quietly. "You turned our marriage into his classroom." I opened the door and threw the suitcase onto the driveway. "Get out. Peter, please. Get out." She stood there, crying silently, then whispered, "You're making a mistake." I laughed bitterly. "No, Isabella. I'm correcting one." She left that night. The sound of her car fading into the distance felt like a chapter closing, violently, finally. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I told him I needed to start divorce proceedings and to prepare for a possible complaint from Ben. But no police ever came. No lawyer from his company called. Ben stayed silent. Completely. I guess fear works faster than paperwork. Still, the silence was suffocating. The house felt too big, too empty. Every room echoed with her voice, her laugh, her footsteps, her perfume still lingering on the pillow. I tried to drink it away, to bury the noise with music and whiskey, but grief doesn't fade when you're drunk. It just blurs, hides behind the glass, and waits for you to sober up. Weeks passed. The divorce went through quietly. No drama, no fights. One morning, I saw her car parked outside the office again, next to Ben's. So that's how it ends, I thought. She went back to him. It should have made me angry. But instead, I just felt tired. Completely, utterly tired. I decided to leave the city. Packed a few things, grabbed the keys, and drove south. No destination, no plan, just movement. After 3 states and 2 sleepless nights, my car broke down outside a small town in Arizona. Desert wind, neon lights, a diner called the Rusty Spoon. That's where I met her. She introduced herself as Emmy. Blonde hair in a loose bun, eyes the color of burnt sugar, smile that made you forget what pain felt like for a moment. "You look like a man running from something," she said, wiping her hands on a towel. "Maybe I am," I replied. She poured me coffee. "Then you picked the right town. Nobody finds you here unless you want them to." I stayed that night in a cheap motel, but the next morning, she found me again. "Car's still dead." "Yeah." "Then come by the diner. I could use an extra hand fixing the fence out back. I'll pay you in pie." That's how it started. For the first time in months, I felt something other than rage. Emmy didn't ask about my past. She didn't dig. She just talked about small things like the weather, the way the stars looked different in the desert, how the wind carried secrets you could never hear back east. We'd close the diner around midnight and sit outside under the flickering neon sign. She'd hand me a cigarette and say, "You don't look like a man who should be alone." "I'm now," I'd answer. "Maybe," she'd smile. "But that's not forever." After 2 weeks, she invited me to go camping with her. It's not far. There's a lake. Quiet, no one around. You could use the silence. We packed a tent, some food, and a bottle of bourbon. The night was clear, the stars endless. We sat by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. Then she looked at me, long, steady, unafraid. "Do you still love her?" she asked. I took a breath. "I don't know. Maybe I just love the man I was before her." She smiled softly. "Then let me help you find him again." And she kissed me, slowly, carefully, like someone handling something broken but still beautiful. That night, we made love under the stars, not out of passion, but out of something quieter. Healing. Afterward, I lay there staring at the sky, wondering if I had just betrayed the pain I swore to carry. Emmy turned to me, brushed my cheek, and whispered, "Stop thinking. Just live. That's the only revenge worth having." For the first time in a long time, I slept without dreams. The desert has a strange way of healing you. Maybe it's the silence. Maybe it's the sun burning everything fake off your skin. A month passed before I realized I hadn't thought of Isabella for days. Emmy and I fell into a rhythm. Mornings fixing things around the diner, afternoons driving through ghost towns, nights talking about everything except pain. She was wild and calm at the same time, like a storm that had learned how to rest. I started to laugh again. I started to breathe. Until one Thursday afternoon, a dusty black SUV pulled up in front of the diner. The door opened, and Isabella stepped out. For a moment, the world went silent. Even Emmy froze behind the counter. She hadn't changed much, same dark hair, same confident posture, but something in her eyes was gone. That fierce arrogance she once wore like armor had turned to glass. "Peter," she said quietly. My jaw tightened. "How did you find me?" "I called your lawyer. He told me nothing, but I followed the trail." I almost laughed. "Of course you did." Emmy looked at me, question in her eyes, but didn't say a word. She simply placed 2 coffees on the counter and walked outside, giving us space. Isabella sat down opposite me. She looked at my hands, at the dirt under my nails. "You look different." "I am." She swallowed. "Ben's gone." I raised an eyebrow. "Gone?" She nodded. "He was fired last year. Apparently, he'd been harassing multiple women. They opened an internal investigation." "Shocking," I said dryly. She didn't smile. "He tried to contact me again. I told him I'd go to the police if he ever did." I leaned back. "So, what do you want, Isabella? Forgiveness? A fresh start?" Her voice cracked. "I want peace. I wanted to see if you ever found it." I looked out the window, where Emmy was leaning against the fence, her hair catching the sunset. "I did," I said quietly. "Just not with you." Isabella's eyes welled up. "You think I don't deserve another chance?" I met her gaze. "You don't deserve the man I became after you." She flinched at that. "Peter," she whispered, "I know what I did hurt you, but you hurt me too. The way you looked at me after that night, like I was something to be erased." "You were erased," I said calmly, "from my plans, from my dreams, because you made me question what love even means." Tears rolled down her cheeks. I was scared of losing control, of being small, of being ordinary. Ben made me feel powerful. And then I realized power means nothing when you've burned down the only person who ever saw you as more than a game. Her voice cracked into a sob. "You were my home, Peter." I shook my head. "You should have remembered that before you locked the door from the inside." She stood slowly. "So this is it?" "This was it 3 years ago." She hesitated, looked toward Emmy again, then whispered, "She's lucky." I smiled faintly. "No, I'm lucky. She doesn't need to win to feel strong." Isabella nodded, wiped her tears, and walked out. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. For the first time, I didn't feel rage or victory or even sadness. Just stillness, like the air after a storm. That night, I told Emmy everything. No edits, no justifications. She listened without interrupting, her eyes steady, warm. When I finished, she said softly, "You know what I like about you, Peter?" "What?" "You're not trying to be the hero or the victim anymore. You're just trying to be human." I laughed, a sound that almost startled me. "That's new." She kissed my cheek. "Get used to it." Weeks turned into months. The divorce papers gathered dust in a drawer I never opened again. The diner became my second home. Emmy and I built something real, quiet, unpolished, but real. One evening, we closed early and drove out to the same lake where we'd first camped. The stars were clearer than ever. The fire crackled softly. She leaned against me and said, "You still think about her sometimes, don't you?" "Sometimes," I admitted, "but it's different now." "How so?" "It doesn't hurt anymore. It just reminds me of who I used to be." She smiled. "Then that means you finally won." I looked at her, confused. "Won what?" "Yourself back." I didn't answer. I just pulled her close, listening to the wind move through the trees, carrying away the last echoes of an old life. For the first time in years, I wasn't haunted by what had happened, only grateful for what had survived. Because the truth is, some wars aren't fought between people. They're fought inside the silence after goodbye. And that's where I learned the hardest lesson of all. You don't conquer fear by fighting it. You let it know it never ran you to begin with.